Go ahead and turn on that video there and recording here. Hopefully we don't have any issues. All right, so today we're getting into, I think just in internet basics, something like that, right? We're going to start looking at infrastructure of the web, stuff like that. We might have a little bit leftovers next time. We're going to see if we can push through all the lecture and then dedicate this day more towards setting up accounts and FTP and some different things there. Does that work for everybody? More practical and this more kind of conceptualized. So let's go back and let's talk about the internet, guys. Okay, where did it all begin? What do you guys think? Earliest knowledge you know of the internet is
universities connecting to share science papers.
okay. So universities connecting. Does anybody know anything earlier than that? Who was doing stuff with the internet way back in the day? What's that? Military? Yeah, you're right. Let's go out and look at internet history. There's one timeline. Let's see if there's some good pictures here. Hall of Fame. All right, so this is a pretty decent one. So that's not really a thing, for internet, but global communications. Saw Sputnik go up. Russia launched essentially. Modems were invented back in '58. Government creates ARPA. Okay. Research Projects Agency. That was kind of interest. Packet switching, essentially we're going to talk about packets. So when I say packets, just kind of remember that name for a little bit from now. Different networks, ASCII developed. What's the ASCII code? Keys, like the characters, right? The little A, and you push the A and it, whatever. So all that was back in '63. Packet switching, so things could talk to each other. Network studies, they started putting together in '65 different things. I think ARPANET. You guys ever heard of ARPANET? Right, that's kind of the very beginnings of the internet as we know it today. Let's see if this is a good image here. Kind of shows us some awesome stuff. 55. Wait, this might be Apple. This is all Apple. We don't care about them right now. Just looking for history of the internet here, but this is not what I was looking for. I don't know. What's this one? I don't know. Let's keep going down through this thing here. Right. So ARPANET kind of took hold. We saw essentially the government and military using these things. Back in the '80s, we saw universities starting to come on board. We saw a thing called TCP/IP come on board. That was pretty cool back in the day. First email in Germany back in '84. Research education network developed. And I believe University of Utah was like one of the few, like in a small handful that was actually doing this way back in the day. One guy, Tim Berners-Lee, decided he wanted to find a way to share documents, like was said, between the different universities, and he created what was called WWW, the World Wide Web, as a HTML markup language, which basically allowed people to write out text and have little links to different parts of their pages or link out to different documents, but a very basic document sharing thing, okay? And let's go see evolution of the web. This is a little old, I think 2011, but it still gives us some good history on HTML, some different things like that as we move forward throughout the web. So I know you guys are pretty young for the most part looking across the room here, but what's some of your most earliest memories of using the internet? Does anybody actually in here remember before the internet? Just wondering, totally dating myself here. I'm not that old either. But Nobody remember
remember
before the web?
Not having it. Like,
You remember not having it? What year was that?
Well, I mean, I lived out on a ranch.
Okay,
We didn't have
so
it,
like,
that's like
welcome to civilization, buddy. Just
yeah.
kidding. Just kidding.
I don't recall the internet well.
What's that?
I don't really recall much of the internet, but I remember I remember just mostly games for computers. But
Okay.
the internet wasn't the thing. back
Okay.
then.
So around 91, HTTP, the protocol essentially is built. HTML1, we're going to talk about HTML, what that is. Does anybody know what that stands for, HTML?
Hypertext markup language.
Skadoosh. There you go. All right. That's cool. And just a way of sharing stuff around, a whole bunch there. So I don't know. My earliest memory, I was just a little kid, and I went to my friend's house. I think it was probably '94. I was just a little kid, and his dad got dial-up, and I downloaded a game. It was my first pirated game. I remember some pinball game or something, and I thought like this is the coolest thing ever because way back then I remember going to my friend's house with stacks of these little floppy disks. Does anybody remember those at all? And I remember we'd take these things, and then if one got messed up because they're all magnetic, as I was copying all my games, the whole batch was basically broken. And I just remember thinking it took like 5 hours to download this, not even a meg, I don't think. But I just remember thinking this is awesome. And then I don't think it was until 98, 97, my mom got in our house or something at that point. But I remember, does anybody remember Hotmail back when it was cool?
AOL.
Back when it
It was AOL.
well, AOL was cool. I don't know. Anybody still have an AOL account at all in here? I'm gonna publicly mock you. Okay, that's good. We judge you, right, if you use that. Just teasing. But I'm not. So I don't know. Kind of going back, we saw. The web was really hard back then. Did anybody ever hear Mosaic, the browser? I remember, and I wasn't on the web at all this time, but I remember watching a show 90210. That you guys remember that, hearing about that maybe? And somebody went and bought a browser in a box. And I just remember thinking that was really cool. I really used it. Netscape. Who used Netscape in here? Anybody at all? Okay. That was the browser. Okay, that was awesome. And then probably it was awesome until maybe 2000 or so. And then Internet Explorer picked up a whole bunch of traction and became great. And so people started using that. And then we used Internet Explorer up until probably when? When do you guys think? When did we move away from Internet Explorer?
Chrome came around.
We did. Chrome came around. I think for me, I started using Firefox a little bit more, probably around here, 2006, 2008, in that range. Chrome came out. It was much, much faster than Firefox at the time. And then we started moving that. And I think most people today probably use Chrome, another big portion Firefox, large portion Safari. Why Safari? Because of the Mac, yes, but more specifically, what device? The iPhone, right? Use Safari browser on there. As far as Android as well, we see a lot of Chrome browsers on there as well too. And Internet Explorer pretty much died off. What was it just replaced by? Edge. Okay. Does anybody use Edge a lot in here?
My mom does.
My mom does. Okay, that's good. So I don't know. There's a lot of history there. I remember. And I'm just kind of going through old man curl, syndrome here. But started using the web. I think we started going down to the library probably 96, 97, using Hotmail down there. I remember I went to university in 99, and I started seeing browsers and T1 connections and thinking that was really fast. Back in 2000, early 2000s, we saw kind of a big emergence of e-commerce. Does anybody know what roughly happened around the year 2000 in there at all?
Wasn't that the whole scare with computers?
Okay, so the Y2K bug. That was good. That was good. Anything else happen around that time period?
eBay or something?
It has to do with e-commerce. Has to do with eBay
It was later.
maybe came out.
2002.
There was what we called the .com bubble. Yeah, it was right around that same time, 97 and 2000. That was just people seeing, getting online for the first time, buying stuff and saying, hey, this is going to be the next big thing. They pumped millions and billions of dollars into this, and the general public just wasn't ready, and all these companies basically failed. Can anybody tell me a company or two that made it through the .com bubble bust or bubble burst?
eBay.
I think eBay did. The big one, most famous one, was Amazon. Amazon made it through. Amazon didn't turn a profit, I don't think. I think it took them like 10 years or something crazy like that before they ever turned a profit. But Amazon was one of those. So same time, Napster, I think was that same time. Does anybody remember using Napster back then? All right. Again, 2000 range in here. Some of you guys may not have been born. No, I think you guys were all born, right? You guys all older than 2000? All right. And we kind of fast forward. People started really buying stuff online. I think eBay was probably a thing. 2003, 2004, 2005 was kind of a big thing. Late 2000 range, what did we see come out as far as web was concerned? YouTube was big, awesome. And YouTube, I mean, I remember when they were bought, they were just, they got bought out by Google. Google had like a Google Video. There was a bunch of other different players in that scope, and YouTube took it. They were founded in 2005, and Google took over a year later in 2006. I totally remember when that happened. I think it was $1 billion or something when that happened, and that was like a big acquisition. Anything else around that time that was going on? Facebook. Great. Now, Facebook, when are they? 2004? Yeah, 2004. They didn't really hit mainstream probably until like 2000. Well, they crashed because of Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever remember using MySpace? Do you remember how dirty that interface was at all? Like just crap everywhere, spinning animated GIFs all over the place. And then Facebook came out more organized. And the funny thing is like we look at Facebook, and let's be honest, it's for our parents, right? I mean, most parents are using Facebook. Back then, and we're talking, again, less than 10 years ago, like college students, like that was the coolest thing. I mean, if you're on Facebook, it really was. Not so much anymore. Huh? Yeah, so put out to Harvard, and it would be only Harvard students and Stanford students and different universities, and then they opened it up and let it out to the general public. I don't think I got on until 06 or something, late 06 maybe. And then it just, blew up. And how many billions of users do they have now? I mean, they've got a lot. In 2013, it was at 1 billion. I don't know what they are now, but I mean, a lot. 2014, over 1 billion logged in their Facebook account on a mobile device. Those are mobile users. That's crazy. Yeah, so a lot of people. What has Facebook done to kind of to sustain themselves? Does anybody know? Yeah. Okay, they're doing a lot more ads. They used to really suck on ads as far as mobile ads went. They just couldn't figure it out and weren't making any money. But now I think they're doing really good. Yeah.
Like when you download something else, you can like give it Facebook.
Yeah, so a lot of good sharing, and that's social media as a whole. What other social media outlets have we seen that you guys use on a regular basis? What's that?
Like
Snapchat.
Yeah. Instagram. What else?
Snapchat.
Twitter. What else? Snapchat. It's good. So we've seen a big emergence of social, come on. As far as computing and hardware goes, I mean, back in the day, you guys remember that? Just eat it up, guys. Eat it up. And if you haven't, I want you to appreciate how quiet it is in this room right now. All right. You turn on your computer, and it just sounded like it threw up into the wall, and it would be like that loud.
Why?
I have no idea.
Because they could have
made it so it didn't make any noise.
I have no freaking clue why it did that, but I don't know. I would hear it and I'm like, all right, we're on. You know, and like, what is the welcome? You got mail or whatever AOL would say. I'm like, yeah, somebody likes me. They emailed me. I was kind of a loser back then, all right? Just kidding. Anyway, so, you know, we saw major growth of the web at this time and amounts of traffic come through. We see, you know, phenomenal amount of global you know, internet traffic in petabytes going up to 2011 here, and you can see how many users. My gut feeling is that number is significantly higher. Why on earth would I say that that's higher? I mean, we see this exponential growth, yes, but why? Mobile, okay? So you think of all the computers that you have, the computers that you use, and then tag that into mobile devices and to tablets, and any device that connects to the internet is essentially, you know, that many more devices, and we see that much more traffic. And if you start talking like video, Netflix, HD, 4K, whatever, I mean, that's a phenomenal number. I mean, this is way up out of the, you know, probably on top of the roof by now up there, but you know, it's a lot, you know, that we've seen come through. And so I guess the point of this discussion is a little bit to understand where we came from, because if you ever go out to Web Archive, the Wayback Machine, we look up, give me a website you guys want to see way back in the day. Old website.
RuneScape.
Huh?
RuneScape.
RuneScape?
RuneScape.
I don't even know what that is. Runes? Let's go something like way back, 94. Is that old? Like, go to Pepsi.com. They probably have something out there, McDonald's or something. Let's go back to 96 and look at, you know, the internet. Well, that's good. That's awesome. The internet's come a long ways, you guys, and it's good to have a little bit of understanding of the history, where we used to be, where we are now, and how things have changed as far as internet goes today. Because things are significantly different. I don't know why that's not coming up, but anyways, yeah. Welcome to Pepsi. That's starting to look a little nicer. I don't know what Pepsi using. I'm guessing that was today's site. Oh no, that was 2009. Probably had some flash going in here. Some sweet tunes though, man. All right. So yeah, I mean, we've definitely hit mobile. We've seen like third world countries may not be able to afford a computer and a solid internet connection, but they can afford a mobile device. They're coming online. Africa's blowing up. India and China blowing up. You think of how many people are in there and how many people are coming online today. It's kind of awesome. And as developers, it's important that we understand that, where things are headed, what things are doing. If you guys, well, never mind. Let's keep moving on. All right, so let's talk about some infrastructure, all right? Because if we're going to understand where the web came from, we need to understand kind of basically how it works. The most simplistic way to describe the internet is something that we call the client server model, okay? And essentially, let's say we have a computer over here, laptop or something, and we got a server over here. Is Mallory in the back? Right, far back? Okay, we're going to tease you right now. So Mallory, she really, really likes, don't deny it,
I do. I love it.
Pinterest, all right? I know that, because I watch her, and I see you on Facebook too, and, excuse me guys. All right, so Valerie's going to go out there and she's going to go visit Pinterest.com. Essentially what happens is she makes a request over here, and there's a server somewhere in the world that's just on all day long, and it's just saying, come get my files, and when you make that request, it's going to turn around and say, oh, here's your files of all your sweet pictures of, what do you like? What are you searching on there for? Cats?
Right now, home decor.
Home decor. All right, so she's got her grid of all her pictures of home decor and whatever. All right, so that's kind of what happens. But it's important to understand that this is just a computer. Okay, you can actually turn your computers that you have right now into servers if you wanted to. You just have to install some special software. You can put on something like Apache, and it just says, come and get my files anytime of the day you want. They're here, and I'm going to turn around and return them. Okay? Make sense to you guys? Now, is it that simple? It's not that simple. In the simplified form, I want you to understand, make sure press the server returns your stuff, back and forth, they talk all day long. But there's much, much more to that. And let's talk about that. All right, so in this room, Valerie's surfing Pinterest back there, and her connection comes out of the back of the computer, and where does that go? Do you know? It goes to the desk. You guys can see these little black things here that have an Ethernet cable plugged into them, and then those go into a black cable that go all the way to the end, and if you see like a little white tube there, it goes into the wall. That wall goes up into all these Ethernet cables that go up on the roof, and those all tie back into the room that's in this back corner over here. There's this closet in there with a little AC unit, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of all these Ethernet cables plugged in. It all goes into this thing, and we call that, does anybody know? Into a switch. Okay? But I mean, a server room can have switches in it, can have servers in it, different things. But think of it like, all these little, Ethernet ports. Think of it like a splicer or something, where you're able to share an internet connection. You guys at home, the little device you plug all your computers into, same kind of deal, right? There's a switching capability there. So we have all these computers that are coming out into the labs, and all of them are tied into this switch, right? From there, it goes somewhere else. Does anybody know where it goes next?
Router.
It goes into a router, and a router is kind of like a switch a little bit, but has some intelligence built into it. And that intelligence is going to say, if I want to talk to this guy, it's going to go out to the switch will go there, but if I go out, it's going to go out in the internet somewhere. We'll create a nice little cloud here for internet, or often we hear this referred to as the cloud, okay? And that's going to talk out here. Now, this router might have various switches or things like that, and we're going to talk about some of its other functionality here in a second. But, I mean, we might have switches in other rooms, different buildings on campus, stuff like that, but it probably has like a router that handles all of our traffic for the most part on campus here, and, tons and tons and tons of data getting pumped in and out of there, all right? So it goes out on the internet, and then it comes out to another router, out to another switch, and then probably out to their server that we drew there earlier, like so, okay? So client-server model getting a little bit more complex as we're talking back and forth. And as they, as it makes this path across, it says, oh, all right, I need to talk back, and it sends your stuff back and forth. Now, as it's sending data back and forth, it doesn't send them in one, individual block of text or data, all right? I'm going to send them out in these little itty-bitty little things, and we're going to call these packets, okay? And a packet is divided up into two sections. On the back half, we're going to just have some data, and that might be like 1% of the data or something. It's going to be a small amount, okay? And as we send over these packets, we're going to send hundreds of thousands of these little things back and forth. And so it's going to send little sections of data. That way, if one doesn't make it, we don't lose the entire file. We just lose that little section, okay? And in there, you're going to have your destination. Okay? So when my computer says I want to go out to this website, where am I going to? It gets out a switch like, well, Pinterest isn't here, so let's go to a router. It's not here, now to the cloud, and then it basically finds its way across. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. It also has its source. So when it gets there and says, all right, I want pictures of home decor, it's going to send those pictures back and know where to send them because it has a source of where it came from. And then it also has something called a checksum data, and that basically says, all right, if this 1% didn't make it, I got 99, what exact packet didn't make it? And then it turns around and says, I'm going to send a request back to the source for packet number 900 and whatever number to get it. And then it sends that one individual packet right back and fills, the picture or whatever you guys are trying to, the data you're trying to get. Does that make sense to you guys? So it's machine gunning packets back and forth to each other, and it's got some data in it, it's got destination, source, checksum, basic information. Does that make sense to you guys? All right, so packets are very basic form of data that's going back and forth between everything. Now, there's something in here called an IP address. And an IP address is a series of numbers. We're going to do version 4 here. And each one of these numbers right here is a number between 0 to 255. Okay? And so an appropriate address might be something like 144.38.21.2. And that is a valid IP address. And all computers or internet-enabled devices have an IP address on them. So every computer in here has an IP address. That's how you know the address of this server or the address of that computer or anything like that. Does that make sense to you guys? So think like a home address. I can get to your house if I have your home address and just figure out where you are just with those numbers. And so there's different numbers that might say, with this 2, I need to, I know that this is Dixie Campus. This is actually all Dixie Campus right here. But I know I might go to like this building on this computer or whatever in order to get to that. If you guys are ever curious to find your IP address, hopefully you can look through all of my junk here. You can do something like what is myip.com or something like that. That's a very simple way to see your IP address. You can see that 144.38. And mine is 197.197 to this computer right here. All right? And again, just think of it like a house address. So as we're bumping around the internet, you use these. And I have that cloud, the internet there. But there's much more to that. We can find some good backbone pictures, various. I think there's submarine cable map. Again, hopefully you guys can kind of see through maybe this top area. This is an example of cables that are underneath the ocean, where they are, who owns them, and where they go. So you can click on something and kind of see where it's coming out of and essentially where it's going to in the world, with just big fat cables going everywhere. So when we talk about the cloud, you're bouncing all over the place because, you might go to Google.jp, and we just quickly visited a server in Japan. And then we go to Google.ca, and all of a sudden we're in a Canada server, something like that. If we go to com, it's probably routing us over to a server here, most likely over in California. And as soon as I did that, you saw how fast that went. That's super quick. Those backbones are crazy, huge. You can move crazy amounts of data. But what's important, though, is, for example, I'm just going to go out to terminal really quickly here. I'm going to do a quick ping on google.com. I can see Google's address right here, 216.58.217.206. And if I take that and plug that in my browser, up in my top area, you can see that it goes to google.com. Okay, so you can actually visit the web by IP address if you guys wanted to. But let's be honest, nobody in here is going to memorize all these IP addresses. One thing really quickly before we move on is, well, do you guys see any problems with that IP address there? I mean, I have like 144.3. I mean, any issues that might come up with number of IPs, for example?
That's not
Yeah,
bad.
we're quickly filling up the IPv4 average.
Yeah, we're filling up. Okay, you got to think of all these millions and billions of people coming online out of third world countries that have never been online before. We only have so many addresses, and so for that reason, they've moved over to something called IPv6 or Internet Protocol version 6, and it's much longer. You can see an IPv6 address here, and I don't remember the exact number. 2 to the 128th addresses, which is a crazy high number of IP addresses that people can have now if they flip over IPv6. And we see a big movement towards that right now, moving to IPv6. But Internet Protocol is what's doing that. And more specifically, what we call all of this is what's called the TCP/IP Internet Protocol, and that's kind of what they call this. Now, we have IP addresses to talk to one another. We have some basic hardware going around. I'm going to draw in something else right here. Okay, and draw a wall. And what might this represent? Yes, firewall. Okay, so let's put a bunch of bricks in it or something in this firewall. And what do firewalls do? What are we
Block certain types of traffic.
They block certain types of traffic. They protect us. So, I mean, back in the day, if you didn't have a router with a firewall or a software firewall on your computer, I mean, you literally could go mess with a lot of people, and it was awesome. But can't do that today. And it's gonna slow.
It's like a filter.
What's that?
It's like a filter.
Kinda. Okay. So I'm going to draw in here a little door. I'm going to put the door on this side with the hinge that you can just push out. But you can't necessarily push in. That way, if somebody comes and tries to hit it, they can't go in, but they can easily go through. Does that make sense? So if you want to make a request out to the web, your computer just pushes on through, and on through you go, right? Out the internet. On this other side, we'll draw another one. And if they're a server and they're on all day long, do you think that they have a hinge on that door, or is that door just always open for the most part? Pretty much always open, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and draw a nice little area that traffic can just push on through, on in, and back out all day long. And these little holes are what we call ports, okay? And there's lots and lots of ports. I think there's like
65,536.
boom, like a glove. 65,000 something. Okay. What is this port? Does anybody know what that port is?
Which one?
This one. That Apache server is using here. My web server.
80.
What's that?
80.
80. So I'm probably the only teacher who can draw up here. Let's do it. So HTTP traffic is going to use port 80, all right? And I mean, you guys can quickly, well, we'll test that here in a second. Any other common ones that are out there?
22.
And that is HTTPS, and that is 443. Good. Any others?
22.
And what's 22? SSH. We can also use SFTP on that, and that's port 22. FTP. And some of you guys are probably like, what the crap's you talking about? You know, like, let's be honest, I don't care. Okay. You probably should know these, okay, the common ports, because you're going to be using some software next class, and you're going to have to specify what port you're going to be talking in and out of, okay? If we open up a web browser quick, and again, hopefully you can look through my writing here. I'm going to go up to Dixie.edu, okay? And I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to just do a little :80 right here at the end, and I'm going to hit enter. And you notice it went away, but I actually forced my traffic to go through port 80. So if I go back here and I say, all right, we're going to go back through some, well, not that high, but some random number, it's going to go, and you can see it spinning there. And it can't talk because that port is not open, all right? That port is not open saying come in and get the traffic. Now I could go in and say port 1,200 and whatever thousand. I could say that one's open and direct it back, but most web servers are on port 80. So you got to understand that, that's important. And if I go to Dixie.edu:443, which is HTTPS, that still doesn't come up until I come back here and change what's called the protocol. I don't know if we have, oh, it did. So you see HTTPS worked and that 443 went away. Now I can't talk on HTTPS over port 80 because it's looking for HTTP traffic. So you've got to have the protocol and the correct port together. Your browser automatically just throws this in there, but that's essentially what's going on in the background. Any questions on that?
So what's the difference between like HTTP and HTTPS? Just one.
What do you guys think? So it is a letter.
SSL.
Okay, what does that mean though?
Secure socket layer. It means that you've got an encrypted connection to that.
Okay, it's encrypted. It's like a secure version. So what it's doing is before it leaves your computer over here, it's going to take your files there, and it's going to, that's a lock, okay. And it's going to lock it up and encrypt it, and then on the back side, it's going to take your file and unlock it. It essentially has a key back and forth. We're going to talk about that maybe later on in the class. But just know that your files between your computer and your server are locked up. So typically you'll see HTTPS on your bank sites, anything that's taking credit card information, stuff that you don't want getting out there. I mean, to be honest with you, if you know anything about computers, maybe Mr. SSL 665,000 man here, have you ever tried doing packet sniffing before? Sitting on an open traffic, open network, and you literally can watch the traffic that comes through. And if people are not encrypted and there's not any kind of security on passwords, you can grab that information. You literally can just sit there. So I used to work in ISP and I'd sit there and I just grab traffic to see what people are doing. They had no idea I'm doing it. If you're on open networks, you can grab other people's traffic, like literally in the room there, and see what they're doing. It's not that hard, but really, any high school kid with a little bit of knowledge and wants to mess with people, they'll go in there and screw with you. So HTTPS, really good, all right? Good thing to have. It's going somewhere. Where? Let's talk about, yeah.
How do you view that traffic?
How do you view that traffic?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that. You have to use your brain and go figure that out.
Yeah.
Just use the keywords, packet sniffing, or a lot of stuff out there. All right, let's talk about, oh yeah.
It's very legal.
That's why I didn't do it.
Oh.
That's on camera.
Yes, it's a good thing it's not recorded. All right, so you remember we were surfing the web by IP addresses, and that's dumb, unless you can memorize all these things, but you're not going to memorize all these things. There's got to be a way to translate the word google.com into a number, right? You've got to be able to have something that makes sense to the public and can also help people know where everything is. So when I look at something like this, we go http:// let's go Dixie.edu. Okay. How does your computer know where that is, where that server is? Okay. So first thing, what it does is it looks at a bunch of main servers, essentially .edus, and they all can basically tell your computer where the Dixie server is. And the Dixie server might be out somewhere. and we're going to place another server right here. Okay, and we're going to call this our domain name server, or often called just DNS server. Okay, and on that DNS server, it's going to have a number. We're going to do 138.1, perhaps, I don't know. And that's going to say Dixie.edu, all right? Essentially goes to that. So it's going to go out and it's going to say, all right, go to Dixie.edu, it's going to go out here, it's going to go into the DNS server. The DNS server is going to say, here's the IP address of Dixie.edu, and then it takes it back there and returns it. And then we know that number now, and we can go out and visit that web page, all right? And DNS servers essentially run everything. And if they're not there and you type out google.com and it's not up, the DNS server, you're not going to be able to make that translation. You're going to have to know that number. There's multiple DNS servers and different, and we can go into much more into this. But just know that there's a server sitting out there that translates all day long. Give me a number, I'll give you a name. Or, sorry, give me a name and I'll give you a number. All day long, that's all it does. Okay? You guys have questions on that? So you got to think to yourself, when she's surfing Pinterest again, back there, she's clean right now, I'm watching.
Whatever, I really love it.
It quickly goes out, looks at the server, gets a name, goes right back, says, all right, I need that name, goes out to here, returns those files, and it's just rapidly going super fast, getting all this data and moving around. That's kind of a basic understanding of the infrastructure that sits behind your guys' server. So, more importantly, what I want you guys to know is when you guys are uploading your files, you're going to use a program called an FTP client. And you're going to go out off your computer. It's going to give you the address of your domain name or whatever you're going to go. It's going to go back, and this FTP client's going to go out. Rather than going through port 80, it's going to go through port 22 in this case. We're going to use SFTP, not FTP, but we're going to be using port 22. So go through one of these ports up here or something into your server, and your server is going to have some special FTP server software on it. And you're going to upload your files to here, and then with the browser, you're going to be able to go view those files. So you're using an FTP client or a file transfer protocol client, okay, to upload or download or delete or update or whatever else you want to do, and then use your browser just to view them. Okay, and that's how we surf the web. All right, next step, let's change this out to be mail.dixie.edu / I don't know, courses / web 1400 / index.html. Okay? All right. Tell me your name again, white shirt. Jared? Okay, you gotta be quiet. Okay. We're gonna test your belts. I know you know this knowledge right about now, all right? Does anybody know what that is? Index.html.
It's like the main page.
Okay, but more specifically, what is it?
It's the first page that you go to.
Okay, let me just change that and say, me.jpg, right? What is that?
Takes to an image.
Yeah,
Profile.
it's a file name, right? You guys have all seen these, .mp3, all these file names, it's just a file. Okay, sitting on your server somewhere, it's just a file, right? More specifically, what is that part? Extension, a file extension, a file type, okay? JPEGs and HTML files, doc files, and PDFs, and all these different types of files, right? So we have a file, we have a file extension, the file name. What is that? It's a directory, okay? It's a directory on a folder. It's literally just think on your own computers, making a new directory, putting files in it, same deal. It's exactly what you do on your server, okay? Then this, same thing or different? Is that a folder? Same thing, another folder. What is this? Does anybody know what that is? .edu, .com, .org, what are those called? Those are what are called top level domains, TLDs. Okay? Coms, orgs, all those things. And there's a bunch of new ones out there that got released maybe 2 years ago, 3, I don't know. If you think like .university or Google, I think is one. Surfing. Random name, Apple. Whatever, bananas or something. There's a whole bunch of them, like hundreds and hundreds of these things, I believe, that just came out, and so you can actually buy like mat.monkey, if you want to, and that'd be your domain name, right? So TLDs are what top level domains, all right? So if that's a top level domain, what is that then? It's a domain name, okay? Good. Does anybody know what that is?
Subdomain?
It's a subdomain, okay? So the question is www.google.com the same as google.com? Are those the same? Does anybody know? If you type them out, they'll appear to be the same. But the interesting thing is when we look at this subdomain here, when we look at dixie.edu, is that the same as mail.dixie.edu? It's not. They're different. Okay. When you add on the subdomain, it actually looks at another, like Dixie, may say down here, another IP address goes to mail.dixie.edu, and we'll go to a different domain name. Okay. Most of the time, www and just the domain name, they point to the same server, but it doesn't have to be. They can be different if you want them to be. So mail.dixie.edu is going to go somewhere else than dixie.edu. www.dixie.edu or .google could go to a whole other server, a totally different place than google.com. All right, so understand that when we're talking a subdomain. And last but not least, what's that one called? Protocol. We talked about the various protocols up here that you can use. Okay, so together, does anybody know what that whole thing's called? Actually, one more. Let's do this. :80. What's that called there? Port. Just a port. Okay, so we'll throw that on the end. That all together is
URL.
a URL. And what does that stand for, Smart Jared?
Uniform Resource Locator.
There you go. Okay, that's good. All right, so it's a lot to take in, and mostly you guys kind of need to understand the concepts behind it, but there will be probably something on your exam about all this. I think, what are we at here? 45, right? Okay. Does anybody else need that any longer? Okay. We're going to turn on the projector here. Cool. Let's see what else I forgot here. So as we're moving data back and forth and all over the place, let's go back to this. There's different ways of doing it. And back in the day with Mosaic, we had HTML1. And if you remember, sorry, need to unmute the screen there. Yeah, you guys should just know what I'm talking about. All right, you should be reading my mind. All right, so back in the day, we had browsers like Mosaic that supported HTML version 1. And that was a very simple version of HTML. Maybe it had, some text. I don't know if it had images. Probably had some images though. Some linking, bold, some different things. Very, very simple. Not a whole lot to it. And they moved on. They decided, all right, we want to make this better, so we'll go out and make version 2. And we added some more features to it. And version 3 added some more features to it. 3.2 and 4. 4, which was started in 98. and for the most part, you know, was pretty strong for a while. You kind of hung around, and then we saw something kind of emerge called XML. All right, went along for a while, and then we saw convergence of HTML and XML, and they turned into what was called XHTML. And this is just a type of document that we send back and forth. It still said .html as its extension, but it was like a web document that you would pull things up and look at different things from time to time. And then we saw late, 2009, 2010, really kind of grab hold, probably about 2010, something called HTML5. That's what we're going to be learning in here, all right? Primarily is HTML5. But I will, from time to time, say, here's an old way to code in XHTML or HTML version 4. Because there's still, you know, maybe, I think I looked up the other day, percent of web on HTML5. I think it's about 80% or something like that. 80.9%. So you have 20% of the web that is not on HTML5. So, you know, if you go edit old files or somebody's stuff, you're going to have to kind of know some of the differences, but there's not many of them, okay? There's not that many. So you'll probably be okay. Up until I think it was last year, Dixie.edu was still on XHTML, for example. So I mean, it's kind of laggy, but still, you know, you can see a big university on an older page. And the way you can tell is just open up a site like Dixie.edu, and you can pull up the source code, and you can tell right here this doc type. And this way to code right there, this is doc type space HTML, is an HTML5 doc type. So it's a set of rules that we have to follow, a certain way of programming. If you're going to say, I'm going to be in HTML5 or XHTML or whatever, you got to follow that set of rules, or the browser doesn't know how to display it correctly, and it might run into some problems. So that's what that is right there. All right, and you can see, kind of going back here, HTML5 came out, and it's been the standard moving on. There's something else called CSS. You'll see these CSS animations, and there's probably some CSS back here somewhere. CSS2, there's version 2 right there. I don't see version 1. But that is the style to the HTML. So HTML, think of it like just text and images, and CSS is let's move it over here, and let's give it some colors, and let's make it pretty, and let's make it interactive a little bit, and stuff like that, okay? So we're not going to get into CSS this week. I think next week we're going to start talking about that and get really heavy into CSS. This class is probably 80% CSS, 20% HTML, speckled with CSS, and then a little bit of this in there. But primarily it's CSS. You're going to be learning a lot of that over the course of this semester. So it's important to understand that. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. But again, we're going to get into that a little bit more. And you can see the browsers when they started supporting different technologies inside of this evolution of the web. Let's get into the basics. Well, I'm just wondering here. Let's not do that. Next video, next class, what we're going to do is show you guys how to log into your servers, how to set up your servers, how to set up a basic file type, a basic HTML5 page, and get that working. And then give any additional time to just let you guys kind of finish stuff and fix any problems you might have. And then you can see on Wednesday that will be due. And for that first assignment, and again, we'll go over all this next class. We'll do a video for that too. You're just going to pick an editor, basic HTML page. You can see that that HTML5 doc type right there, and just basically making a page and getting it online and how to do all that. So we'll do that next class. I'll save that for then rather than continuing on, and we'll end the video here. Is there anything else you guys would like to know, or stuff that like clarified a little bit more, stuff that you were kind of confused on, maybe? I'm happy to cover any of that. We got like 10 minutes here or so. Well, I guess the thing I want you guys to realize more than anything is just kind of where we've come from, how the structure works, basic understanding of the internet, e-commerce, some basics like that, and it's pretty cool, to kind of see what new technologies are coming out and what we're finding online. It's been quite amazing to see the shift over to mobile. We're going to focus in a lot of mobile development in here. With that said, we'll end, and I'll end the video. So thanks for coming.